Welcome to Nocturnal Knowledge. Imagine waking up in Thebes 3,000 years ago. The desert sun is rising, the Nile is flooding, and your survival depends on choices you've never faced before. What would you eat? Where would you live? Who could you trust? And how would you avoid angering the gods? Today, we're stepping inside Charlotte Booth's How to Survive in Ancient Egypt, a survival guide to one of history's greatest civilizations. If you enjoy this journey through time, remember to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most fascinating books. Let's begin our adventure. The lifeblood of Egypt, understanding the Nile and its inundation. To truly understand life in ancient Egypt, one must first understand the river that defined it. The Nile was not merely a geographical feature, it was the very pulse of the land, the wellspring of its existence, and the bedrock of its civilization. Egypt, known to its inhabitants as Kemet, was a society intrinsically tied to this majestic waterway. It provided sustenance, facilitated travel, and profoundly shaped its people's beliefs, their work, and the very rhythm of their year. The Nile flowed from the south, the region known as Upper Egypt, northward into the vast fertile expanse of the delta in Lower Egypt before emptying into the Mediterranean Sea. The land directly nourished by the river, a strip of approximately 1 mile on either side of its banks, was the extent of what could be adequately irrigated. This limited habitable land, totaling around 34,000 square kilometers, not only dictated where people could live, but also served as a formidable natural defense. The surrounding deserts isolated Egypt from its neighbors, making invasion a rare occurrence. Crucially, ancient Egypt received very little rainfall. Even today, the delta receives a mere 100 to 200 millimeters annually. Therefore, the entire population and its agriculture depended utterly on the Nile and its predictable annual inundation. This life-giving flood occurred between July and October, submerging much of the land bordering the river. As the waters receded, they left behind a rich, fertile silt, the very essence of Kemet's Black Land, its name derived from this precious deposit. The agricultural cycle was inextricably linked to this natural phenomenon. Crops, primarily emmer wheat and barley, were sown in October or November following the retreat of the floodwaters and harvested by April. But this delicate balance held an inherent vulnerability. If the inundation was too low, the fields would not receive enough water, leading to crop failure and widespread famine. Conversely, an inundation that was too high would prolong the flooding, delaying the planting season and again threatening the harvest. The ancient Egyptians, a remarkably practical people, developed sophisticated methods to monitor and predict the Nile's behavior. Scattered throughout Upper Egypt at major temples like Philae, Edfu, Esna, Komombo, and Dendera stood Nilometers. These were essentially staircases or corridors descending into the river, allowing priests to meticulously measure the water levels at different times of the year. By comparing this data with records from previous years, they could anticipate the flood's height and make preparations to mitigate any potential famine. The annual inundation was not solely a matter of practical concern, it was also a deeply spiritual event. Festivals were held to celebrate the rising of the Nile, acknowledging its divine power. While local legends speak of a virgin sacrifice to appease the gods and encourage a good flood, the reality was one of careful observation and communal preparation. The constant threat of famine instilled in the Egyptians a profound appreciation for abundance.
Wealth was not measured by leanness, but by the presence of rolls of fat, a visible sign of having enough to eat. For the majority of the population, the diet was largely vegetarian, a necessity born of the limited resources. Only the wealthy could regularly afford to supplement their diet with meat and fowl. The landscape of Thebes, where our story unfolds, would have been strikingly similar to modern Luxor, albeit without the pervasive hum of modern technology. Traditional crafts such as brickmaking from Nile mud and agricultural techniques continued to be practiced. Irrigation was vital, and the shaduf, a lever with a bucket on one end and a counterweight on the other, introduced during the New Kingdom, was a novel and effective tool for lifting water from the Nile into irrigation channels, extending the reach of its life-giving waters. The Egyptians' relationship with time was also markedly different. They told time by the position of the sun and the stars, a skill largely lost to modern society. Primitive water clocks, with bowls and small holes, marked the hours, and sophisticated Deccan star clocks tracked the night. The year was divided into 3 seasons: Akhet, the inundation; Peret, the emergence of the land; and Shemu, the harvest. Each year had 360 days, supplemented by 5 additional festival days. New Year was marked not by a fixed date, but by the heliacal rising of Sirius, the star Sopdet, a celestial event that would subtly shift each year. This fluid approach to time suggests a more relaxed attitude than is common in the West today, with precision only truly required for religious rituals, overseen by specialized hour priests. Life in ancient Egypt was structured by a rigid social hierarchy, often visualized as a pyramid with the king at its apex. Beneath him sat a select group of officials, followed by the middle classes, and at the base, the vast majority, the peasants. The low literacy rate, estimated at less than 1%, meant that our understanding of ancient Egyptian history is heavily biased towards the educated elite, whose writings and monumental constructions provide the bulk of our evidence. The lives of the common people remain largely invisible, pieced together from the material remains they left behind. Even familiar names and terms we use today would have been unknown to the ancient Egyptians themselves. The title pharaoh, for instance, is a Greek interpretation of per era, which means great house. The Egyptians referred to their ruler simply as king or his majesty. Even the name of their illustrious capital, Thebes, is a Greek derivative. To the Egyptians, it was Waset. Similarly, the grand temple complexes like Karnak were known by different, more evocative names, such as Ibta Suet, the most select of places. This hierarchical structure and the deeply ingrained reverence for the Nile and its inundation were the foundational elements of Egyptian society. To survive, to thrive, one had to understand and respect the powerful forces that shaped their world, with the great river standing as the ultimate, indispensable source of life.
For millennia, the fertile lands of Kemet, cradled by the life-giving Nile, have stood as a beacon of civilization. But this enduring land, this black land as its people knew it, was not always a unified entity. Its very identity was forged in the crucible of conflict and cooperation, a story etched into monumental stone and whispered through the sands of time. Imagine a time before the familiar order of the New Kingdom, a time when Kemet was not a single realm, but a collection of disparate regions, each with its own chieftain, its own laws, and its own way of life. This was the reality before the momentous unification, a process attributed to the legendary King Narmer around 3100 BCE. This wasn't a gentle coming together. It was a forceful assertion of power, a series of battles and sieges that brought the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt, under a single, centralized ruler. Narmer himself is depicted on the famed Narmer palette, a powerful testament to this act, wearing the red crown of the north and the white crown of the south, a symbolic union that would define Egyptian kingship for millennia. Every ruler after him emulated this image of power, adopting the smiting pharaoh pose and the dual crown, reinforcing the idea of a unified Kemet. The smart tattooey symbol depicting the tying of lotus and papyrus stalks further cemented this visual narrative of unity, a concept so ingrained that even rulers of divided lands would claim the title of dual king. This ancient act of unification set the stage for Kemet's enduring legacy, a legacy that includes the colossal pyramids, monuments that even in 1360 BCE, the era you are about to inhabit, were already 1,000 years old. These towering structures, particularly those at Giza, are not merely tombs. They are awe-inspiring testaments to the power of kingship and the divine connection between the ruler and the sun god. From Djoser's revolutionary step pyramid at Saqqara, an elaboration of the traditional mastaba, to Sneferu's persistent, albeit initially flawed, attempts to create a true pyramid at Meidum and Dashur, the evolution of these monumental tombs showcases centuries of architectural innovation. Ultimately, Khufu's Great Pyramid, standing at an astonishing 146 meters, and the enigmatic Sphinx, believed to be the work of Khafre, would become enduring symbols of Egypt's Old Kingdom might. These structures served as a popular destination for travelers, a place where one could even sleep between the Sphinx's paws, seeking divine messages. The dream stela of Thutmose IV vividly recounts how a dream at the Sphinx's base legitimized his claim to the throne, underscoring the profound spiritual significance these monuments held. Yet Kemet's history is not a seamless progression of strength. Periods of instability, known as intermediate periods, punctuated its golden ages. The most profound disruption came at the end of the Middle Kingdom, around 1782 BCE, with a devastating famine that plunged the land into disarray. This ushered in the Second Intermediate Period, a time when Egypt fractured, not just into upper and lower, but with further internal divisions. It was during this era that a foreign power, known to the Egyptians as the Hyksos, or rulers of foreign lands, the Hyksos, rose to prominence in the Delta. For generations, the narrative has been one of invasion and conquest. However, archaeological evidence paints a more nuanced picture. The Hyksos were not simply invaders. They were an Asiatic community that had been settled in the Delta for at least a century before assuming control. Their capital city, Tel el-Daba, reveals a fascinating blend of Syro-Canaanite and Egyptian cultures, with an increasing shift toward Canaanite influences as their power grew. They worshipped a syncretic pantheon, most notably the composite deity Seth Baal, a formidable combination of the Egyptian god of chaos and the Canaanite storm god. This was a populace that integrated rather than purely conquered. The Hyksos ruled for 90 years, their influence spreading southwards. The Theban 17th dynasty, particularly King Sekenenre Tao II and his son Kamose, fought valiantly to reclaim Kemet. Sekenenre Tao tragically fell in battle, but his son Kamose pushed the Hyksos back, laying the groundwork for his brother Ahmose to finally expel them from Kemet, chasing them as far as Palestine. Ahmose then reunited the two lands, ending the Second Intermediate Period and ushering in a new era of stability and power. This period of foreign rule though ultimately repelled, left an indelible mark on Kemet. The most significant legacy was a revolution in military practice. Kemet's army, which once was based on conscription, transformed into a permanent professional force. This era also saw the introduction of sophisticated military technology. While it's a common misconception that the Hyksos introduced the chariot, both Egyptians and Hyksos developed charioting skills concurrently. More impactful was the adoption of the composite bow, a Near Eastern innovation made of fragmented wood, offering greater range and flexibility than the traditional self-bow. The Hyksos also introduced the scimitar sword, further enhancing Kemet's military arsenal. Even more recently, in the annals of Theban history, the reign of Hatshepsut presented a disruption to the divine order of Ma'at. A woman who declared herself king, she adopted the full titulary and regalia of a male ruler, including the false beard. This was a contentious act, a departure from the established norms that governed Egyptian society. Hatshepsut's reign, though relatively short and filled with successful trade expeditions and ambitious building projects, was ultimately erased from the historical record by her successor, Thutmose III, as it challenged the fundamental principles of kingship. Her monuments were defaced, her name removed, as if to protect the divine equilibrium from such a radical departure. These events, the initial unification, the enduring legacy of the pyramids, and the disruptive yet transformative period of Hyksos rule, all form the backdrop to the vibrant city of Thebes in 1360 BCE. They are the foundational stories, the historical currents that shaped the land you are about to navigate, a land where tradition meets innovation, and where the past is never truly forgotten.
The reign of Hatshepsut, a woman on the throne. For over 3 millennia, Kemet, the Black Land, thrived. Its history is a tapestry woven with dynasties, periods of immense prosperity, and eras of turmoil. Yet among these monumental shifts, one reign stands out as particularly contentious, a disruption to the divine order of Ma'at, that of Hatshepsut. To understand Hatshepsut's ascendancy, we must first appreciate the bedrock of Egyptian kingship. The king was more than a ruler. He was a divine intermediary, the guarantor of Ma'at, truth, justice, and cosmic balance. His authority was absolute, his maleness integral to the very fabric of kingship. Hatshepsut, daughter of Thutmose I and his royal wife Ahmose, was born into this established order. Her father, Thutmose I, ruled from 1524 to 1518 BCE. He married his daughter Ahmose, a practice acceptable among royalty, though not common for ordinary people. Hatshepsut's lineage was potent. Her brother, Amenemos, died before he could inherit the throne, leaving the path open for her half-brother, Thutmose II, son of a secondary wife. Hatshepsut married Thutmose II, and together they had 2 daughters. However, Thutmose II also fathered a son, Thutmose III, with another woman. When Thutmose II died in 1504 BCE, Hatshepsut found herself widowed. The throne passed to her young stepson, Thutmose III. Recognizing the boy's tender age, Hatshepsut initially stepped into the role of regent, co-ruling alongside him. For the first 7 years, she wielded considerable power, filling key positions of authority with men loyal to her. This strategic placement laid the groundwork for what was to come. Then, after her 7th year of regency, Hatshepsut made an unprecedented move. She shed her queenly titles and adopted the full 5-fold titulary of a king. This was not a mere symbolic gesture. Hatshepsut began to present herself as king. Monuments depict her wearing the masculine attire of a pharaoh, complete with the ceremonial false beard. She participated in activities exclusively reserved for kings. She commissioned and dedicated 4 grand obelisks at the temple complex of Karnak. She organized a daring expedition to the distant land of Punt, renowned for its exotic commodities, bringing back valuable treasures. And she even commissioned her own tomb in the Valley of the Kings, the burial place of Egypt's rulers. To solidify her claim and empower her own position, Hatshepsut bestowed the title of Great Royal Wife upon her daughter Neferure, granting her significant authority as queen, but in a supporting role to her mother, the king. The reign of Hatshepsut, therefore, was an audacious challenge to the deeply ingrained traditions of Egyptian kingship. It was a woman assuming the ultimate male role, a concept that would have been deeply confusing, distressing, and fundamentally contrary to the laws of Ma'at. This dramatic shift in power, however, was not met with widespread resistance. The men Hatshepsut had strategically placed in positions of power, most notably Senenmut, her vizier, ensured a degree of stability. The exact nature of Hatshepsut and Senenmut's relationship continues to be a subject of speculation, but his loyalty was clearly instrumental in her rule. Despite her powerful reign, Hatshepsut's time on the throne was not destined to last. By year 22 of Thutmose III's supposed reign, though he was a child for much of it, he had regained the throne. Egypt was then restored to the divine laws of Ma'at, with a male king once again at its head. Thutmose III, a robust man of 25 with a warrior spirit, set out to restore Egypt to its former glory. In the years that followed, a systematic effort was made to erase Hatshepsut's reign from historical memory. Thutmose III began to deface and destroy her monuments, either removing her image entirely or replacing her name with his own. For Egyptians living in later generations, Hatshepsut became a legend, a woman whose reign, perceived as a violation of Ma'at, was meticulously expunged from the official records. Her story, a testament to ambition and a challenge to the established order, was buried beneath centuries of deliberate erasure, only to be rediscovered by modern Egyptologists, offering a glimpse into a truly extraordinary, albeit controversial period of ancient Egyptian history.
Upon your arrival in the bustling religious capital of Kemet, Thebes, the sheer scale of the city can be overwhelming. But fear not, for understanding its layout and the rhythm of daily life will quickly help you find your footing. Thebes, like much of Egypt, is divided by the life-giving Nile. Generally, the East Bank is the domain of the living, dotted with temples and small villages of mud brick houses clustered together. The West Bank, where the sun descends, is dedicated to the necropolis and the funerary cults of kings past, with one significant exception, the walled village of Deir el-Medina, home to the artisans working on the royal tombs. Unless you are employed there or have close friends within its walls, there is little reason to venture into this specific community. The heart of Thebes beats on the East Bank. The magnificent temples of Karnak and Luxor, though monumental in scale, are largely closed to the public, accessible only to the king, priests, and temple workers. However, on certain days, the devout may be permitted into the outer courtyards to make offerings or dedicate statues. For the common citizen, the most intimate encounters with the divine occur during public processions, where the sacred barks carrying the god's spirits are paraded through the streets. These are vibrant spectacles filled with chanting priests and dancing devotees, offering a glimpse of the divine presence and a chance to receive blessings. The grandest of these is the Opet Festival, a 27-day celebration of the union between the king and the god Amun,
where the god's shrine travels from Karnak to Luxor Temple, a majestic river procession accompanied by music, dance, and the cheers of the populace. Equally significant is the beautiful Festival of the Valley, where Amun's statue journeys to the West Bank to visit the funerary temples, a time for married couples to seek blessings for fertility and union. As for a place to reside, finding accommodation can be challenging, especially if you are a lone traveler. Most villagers live in compact, four-roomed mud brick houses, often housing multiple generations and even livestock. The typical dwelling is modest, perhaps measuring no more than 40 square meters. For a single individual, a small two-roomed house is more practical, while a couple with a young family might consider a standard four-room dwelling. The first room, often the most decorated, might house a box bed, sometimes adorned with protective deities like Bes and Taweret. The second room typically serves as a family gathering space, with a raised platform for seating and sleeping. This is also where you might find a false door stela, a symbolic portal for ancestral spirits. The third room is a flexible space, used for work, storage, or as a sleeping area. The final and most crucial room is the kitchen, often an open-air courtyard with a clay oven and depressions for storing grain. Ventilation can be an issue, with smoke from lamps and ovens often contributing to soot buildup on the walls. The wealthy, of course, inhabit sprawling villas with private gardens, swimming pools, and numerous servants' quarters, offering a stark contrast to the more humble abodes. The diet in Thebes is as varied as the land is fertile. Bread made from emmer wheat or barley is a staple, often enriched with fat, milk, and eggs. Flavored loaves sweetened with honey or stuffed with dates are a particular delight. Beer, a weak and nourishing brew made from partially cooked bread, is consumed by everyone, including children, as the Nile's water is not always safe to drink without purification. Vegetables and pulses like lentils and chickpeas are abundant and form the backbone of most meals, with lettuce holding a special place associated with the fertility god Amun-Min. Once meat is a luxury for the wealthy, fowl, such as ducks, geese, and quail, are readily available. Beef is rarer, but no part of the animal is wasted. Game caught on desert hunts provides another source of meat for the adventurous. The market offers a wide array of cooking oils, from sesame to almond, and fresh milk and cheese are also commonly found. For those with a sweet tooth, date-based desserts, flapjacks, and oatcakes are popular. And of course, Thebes is renowned for its wine, produced in abundant vineyards, especially on the West Bank. Securing a livelihood in Thebes, particularly if you lack inherited wealth, is paramount. Jobs are often hereditary, but opportunities exist for those with marketable skills. Literacy, while not widespread, is highly valued. Scribes are well compensated, holding positions of respect in administration, temples, and private households. The military offers a career path for the strong and fit, with roles ranging from archer to scribe. Priesthood, once a rotating role, now offers more permanent positions, providing stability and good sustenance. For women, opportunities are more limited, but include roles as midwives, wet nurses, mourners, or even skilled administrators in large households or specific departments of the royal palace. Many women also engage in home industries like dressmaking or food preparation for the market. Wages are typically paid in rations of grain, supplemented with fish, vegetables, and other essentials, with bonuses during festivals. The Egyptians' lives are deeply intertwined with their beliefs. Gods and goddesses are woven into the fabric of everyday existence, from the inundation of the Nile to the health of their families. Household shrines are common, dedicated to deities who address daily concerns like health, childbirth, and fertility. Bes, the dwarf-like protector, and Taweret, the pregnant hippopotamus goddess, are particularly popular for warding off evil and aiding in childbirth. The worship of ancestors is also a significant practice, with ancestor busts serving as focal points for offerings and prayers, seeking their intercession with the divine. Even in matters of law and justice, religion plays a crucial role. The Kenbet, or local court, operates under the watchful eye of Maat, the goddess of truth and justice. While not always focused on uncovering the absolute truth, the Kenbet aims to maintain public order, with oaths sworn before the gods carrying significant weight. For those facing serious accusations, appealing directly to an oracle can offer an alternative route to judgment, with the god's statue indicating a yes or no answer. Free time in Thebes offers a wealth of diversions. Children delight in simple toys crafted from mud or wood, while more elaborate articulated figures and dolls can be commissioned. Ball games, juggling, and various forms of athletic contests are popular among both boys and girls, though typically segregated. For adults, athletics, swimming, and boat races provide recreation. Board games, especially Senet, are a beloved pastime, requiring strategy and luck. Evening gatherings often feature music, singing, and dancing, with professional troupes available for hire at weddings and festivals. In matters of appearance, Thebes values cleanliness and adornment. Hair removal is common for both men and women, with wigs often worn to maintain fashion and hygiene. Cosmetics, particularly kohl around the eyes, are used daily for both aesthetic and medicinal. Linen tunics and kilts are the standard attire, with quality linen and decorative accessories denoting status. Jewelry, from simple faience beads to gold and silver pieces, are essential for completing any outfit. The marketplace is a vibrant hub of activity, though shopping requires patience and negotiation, as the economy operates on a barter system. Understanding the market value of goods, often expressed in deben of copper or silver, is key to fair exchange. From bread and beer to clothing and livestock, acquiring necessities and luxuries is a part of daily life. Navigating life in ancient Thebes requires an understanding of its customs, its people, and its deep spiritual connection to the divine. By embracing the local way of life, you will soon find your place in this ancient and vibrant city.
Feasting and sustenance, the food and drink of ancient Egypt. Life in ancient Egypt, and particularly in the vibrant hub of Thebes, revolved around abundance, and nowhere was this more evident than in the realm of food and drink. For those fortunate enough to thrive, or even just survive in this land, sustenance was not merely about necessity, but a profound reflection of status, celebration, and the very essence of existence. Even in death, the pursuit of eternal feasting permeated the art and beliefs of the ancient Egyptians. Tomb walls, adorned with lavish depictions of banquets laden with choice cuts of meat, plump fowl, and brimming vessels of wine and beer, served as a testament to a life lived well and a hope for continued indulgence in the afterlife. The tomb of Tutankhamun himself, a treasure trove of the departed king's worldly possessions, yielded not only funerary goods, but also a remarkable 48 boxes of prepared food, 26 jars of wine, and an assortment of fruits and vegetables, all intended to sustain him through eternity. The importance of food extended far beyond the tomb, deeply embedded in the fabric of daily life. Akhenaten, during his reign, famously employed regular banquets to ensure the loyalty of his officials, particularly during a time of religious upheaval. These were not modest affairs. Scenes from Amarna depict the royal family reclining on elaborate thrones, enjoying dishes like cow ribs and whole duck, their hands and faces slick with oil and fat as they ate with their fingers, servants diligently pouring water to cleanse them. Beyond the elite, grand banquets were a cornerstone of religious and state festivals.
These occasions often meant a welcome respite from labor for the common folk, accompanied by extra food rations or temple-provided feasts. Therefore, for the newcomer to Thebes, understanding the local culinary landscape is not just about satisfying hunger, but about participating in the social and cultural heart of this ancient civilization. The cornerstone of the Egyptian diet for all classes was bread. Made from emmer wheat or barley, known collectively as corn, bread was prepared in a dizzying array of forms. The most common was a simple flatbread baked on the exterior of a hot clay oven. Loaves varied in shape and size, often enriched with fat, milk, and eggs, making them surprisingly substantial and filling. Flavors were further enhanced by additions like olives, fruit, or honey. A true delicacy was a loaf rolled in cumin seeds before baking, or a sweet fruit bread with a layer of mashed dates sandwiched between dough, its telltale top hole betraying its oven-baked origin. While delicious, a word of caution for the uninitiated. Sand and stone dust inevitably found their way into the bread, a constant abrasive that could take a toll on one's teeth. Treasure any baker who masters the art of fine bread, free from such grit. To accompany meals, and indeed as a staple for everyone, including children, was beer. With Nile water often unsafe without boiling and straining, a weak, nourishing beer served as a safer and readily available beverage. Crafted from partially cooked bread, its quality was directly proportional to the quality of the bread used. This thick, often sediment-laden brew might require straining or drinking through a straw, but it was a constant presence, and for variety could be flavored with dates or honey, its fermentation period dictating its alcoholic content. For those not among the elite, the diet consisted largely of fish, fruit, and vegetables. The fertile Nile Valley ensured an abundance of produce. Most families, even with small plots of land, cultivated their own vegetables. Essential staples included pulses like lentils and chickpeas, alongside broad beans and fava beans. These could be mashed into flavorful pastes enjoyed with bread. Lettuce held a special significance, sacred to the fertility god Amun, believed to be an aphrodisiac and an aid to conception due to the milky sap that oozed from its stem. Onions were small and sweet, often paired with bread and cucumber, all washed down with weak beer. Garlic, though small-headed with many cloves, radishes, leeks, cabbages, and celery were also common market finds. The Egyptians also masterfully employed a wide array of herbs and spices, such as cumin, coriander, cloves, dill, cinnamon, mustard, and mint, to bring their simple ingredients to life. Olives were more of a rarity, often imported, and thus less common in Thebes. Meat and fowl, while primarily the preserve of the wealthy, were accessible on special occasions. The size of the animal often signaled wealth, with the king feasting on oxen while the less affluent might rely on quail or fish. Fowl, including wildfowl, ducks, geese, pigeons, egrets, and quail, were commonly consumed. If one possessed a net or a hunting dog, these could even be caught for daily meals. Preparing them often involved splitting them in half, flattening, and grilling, or sometimes roasting whole. Pigeon stews were a particular favorite. The enterprisal individual could even breed fowl for market, supplementing their diet with eggs. Pigs were a regular meal for middle-class workers, though generally not offered to the gods. Beef, a more expensive and rarer commodity, was particularly prized. No part of the animal was wasted. The head was a prime offering, while ribs and forearms were cooked over open flames. Offal, dried and pickled, provided cheaper cuts, with the liver and heart considered delicacies. Even bones could be boiled into rich stock for stews, and any rendered fat was valuable for cooking. In this hot climate, meat was often preserved by drying in the sun or by storing in salt. While fish formed a part of the staple diet, Certain species, like the medjed fish, were taboo due to their association with the myth of Seth and Osiris. Game animals, hunted in the desert, offered another variety of meat. Wild cows and lions were reserved for royal hunters, but desert hares, gazelles, and oryx were available to the agile. For those with the means to venture into the desert, the rewards could be a more varied meat diet. Cooking oils, readily available in the marketplace, offered diverse flavors and textures. Sesame, almond, linseed, and radish oils were common, with olive oil a rare luxury. Other animal byproducts, like milk from goats, cows, or sheep, could be drunk, cooked with, or churned into cheese. Gebna, made from harder salted curds, and labna, a strained salty yogurt, were the two common cheeses. For those with a sweet tooth, desserts offered delightful variety. Flapjacks and oatcakes sweetened with honey were popular snacks. Date-based confections were a specialty of many bakers, who were known as workers in dates. Other fruits like melons, pomegranates, raisins, and sycamore figs found their way into desserts, wine, and beer. The sycamore fig, religiously significant, was the sacred fruit of the Lady of the Sycamore, an embodiment of Hathor, providing sustenance to the deceased in the afterlife. While pomegranates were often used to flavor wine, mandrakes were an adult indulgence, a narcotic used at parties to induce feelings of intoxication. No discussion of sustenance in Thebes would be complete without mentioning wine. Thebes itself was renowned for its wine production, with vineyards flourishing on the west bank of the Nile. Wines varied in quality and purpose, from offerings to taxes to beverages for merrymaking. A popular choice was shedith, spiced wine, and blended wines experimenting with different grape combinations were gaining traction. White wine, a more labor-intensive and expensive affair for the need to peel each grape, was also available for the truly affluent. Careful attention was paid to the age of wine, with vintages typically best consumed within a year of manufacture. The process of winemaking itself was a communal effort, from the treading of grapes in large basins to the pressing of the pulp, with the final product sealed in amphora jars labeled with the type of wine and harvest year. In Thebes, the abundance of food and drink was a palpable reality, a testament to the fertile lands nurtured by the Nile and a vital component of its rich cultural tapestry. To truly establish your new life, embracing this culinary heritage was as essential as understanding its laws and customs.
Arriving in the bustling metropolis of Thebes, a newcomer seeking to establish a life must quickly turn their attention to securing a means of sustenance. Unless one possesses inherited wealth, survival in ancient Egypt hinges on finding gainful employment. The opportunities available are varied, but it is crucial to understand that many skilled trades and positions are passed down through generations, often from father to son. Vacancies are not as common as one might expect. Nevertheless, with a keen understanding of one's own skills and the prevailing demands of the city, earning a living is certainly attainable. It is important to note that literacy, while highly valued in certain professions, is not a prerequisite for many jobs, given the remarkably low literacy rates across Kemet. For those seeking entry-level positions, a range of low-skilled roles offer a steady, albeit modest, income. Consider the profession of a laundryman. Though often performed by men in this role, the task of washing clothes typically falls to women within the household. An entrepreneurial laundryman can establish a clientele by visiting homes and offering their services for a set fee. The work involves collecting laundry, washing it in the Nile, and returning it clean the following day. While many laundrymen are illiterate, they meticulously maintain records through pictorial representations, ensuring each client's garments are correctly identified and returned. The instruction of Duaketi, a well-known text, provides a rather unflattering, though perhaps satirical commentary on this vital role.
The washerman launders at the riverbank in the vicinity of the crocodile. His food is mixed with filth, and there is no part of him which is clean. He cleans the clothes of a woman in menstruation. Despite this depiction, the service provided by laundrymen is essential for middle-class families who may not have the time for such domestic tasks. Another crucial, though often criticized occupation is that of a fisherman. This profession demands a strong work ethic, the motivation for long hours, and the physical strength from manual labor, but it does not require literacy. Fishermen embark at dawn, working in pairs to cast nets and haul in their catch. As Duaketi rather grimly observes, he is more miserable than one of any other profession, one who is in a river infested with crocodiles. When he comes to the flowing water, so he falls as through the might of God. However, the flexibility of this role, particularly for those who own their own boat, allows for control over one's work, for personal consumption, a community syndicate, or for sale at the market. For those without a boat, dependency on others offers only a fraction of the earnings. For the young, strong, and fit, the military offers a dynamic and potentially lucrative career path. Since the era of the Hyksos, Kemet has maintained a standing army, providing opportunities for men to forge a lifelong career. The military accommodates both literate and illiterate individuals. Military scribes, for instance, experience the excitement of battle without the direct danger, focusing on recording personnel, logistics, spoils, and reports. Basic military training is rigorous, encompassing wrestling, stick fighting, archery, and long-distance marches. Upon identification of individual skills, recruits can be commissioned as charioteers, archers, infantry, or scribes. While esteemed, the reality of battle is harsh, involving significant hand-to-hand combat. The recent introduction of the composite bow allows archers to engage from a considerable distance, a significant tactical advantage. Soldiers typically wear a linen kilt and a leather overkilt, offering minimal protection beyond a kilt and leather waistguard for swordsmen. Sandals, made of reeds, require frequent replacement during long marches. Beyond active combat, soldiers serve at desert outposts, guard trade routes, and assist with manual labor, such as clearing canals or quarrying stone. Military personnel are generally well compensated. In addition to their salary, they receive a share of spoils from war, which can include precious materials, livestock, or even prisoners. Land is often granted as part of their salary, with the understanding that they can be called upon to fight at any time. Upon retirement, soldiers retain their land, ensuring a comfortable old age through farming, and may even receive honorary priestly titles for a secure twilight. Should military life seem too perilous, those with literacy can pursue the esteemed position of a village scribe. This role is highly sought after due to its excellent pay, safety, and high demand. With a small literate population, scribes are indispensable for reading and writing letters, offering legal advice, resolving disputes, and interpreting dreams. As Duaketi eloquently states, "As for a scribe in any office in the residence, he will not suffer want in it. It is greater than any office. There is nothing like it on earth." Scribes are employed by every major organization, from large households and palaces to temples and villages. Some even serve as personal scribes to mayors and local dignitaries. The village of Deir el-Medina, home to the workmen of the royal tombs, provides extensive records of scribal activity, documenting tomb construction, material management, personnel, and ration distribution. Scribes also supplement their income by decorating funerary items and writing letters. The priesthood also presents a newly established full-time career path. No longer limited to a 3-month rotation, this profession offers steady employment with benefits. Temple work ensures adequate food, cleanliness, and fresh linen, with less physically demanding tasks compared to manual labor. The vast Karnak temple complex in Thebes offers numerous opportunities, with its priesthood divided into 5 ranks. The highest positions, first and second prophet, confers significant power, wealth, and influence. Aspiring priests typically begin as fifth prophets, gradually working their way up. Smaller temples offer a more accessible route to higher ranks. Lower ranks, such as the wab or purification priests, assist with temple duties, including carrying sacred barks and supervising artisans. Stolist priests, or priests of the loincloths, are responsible for the daily care and adornment of divine statues. Literate individuals may find roles within the House of Life, an archive and center of learning that preserves and copies religious texts, offering opportunities as priests or teachers. Funerary priests, or ka priests, perform rites and rituals for the deceased, a role that requires a strong constitution due to its proximity to death and tombs. Women also have employment opportunities, though they are generally more constrained. The primary role for women is lady of the house, managing the home and children, alongside domestic industries like dressmaking or food preparation for market. Work outside the home is typically confined to tasks that can be done alongside childcare, such as winnowing or grinding grain. Skilled women may hold administrative positions in large households, such as treasurer or superintendent, provided they are unmarried. Women can also oversee female departments within royal palaces, such as mistress of the royal harem or overseer of the wig shop. Married women are less likely to secure palace roles due to the necessity of residing within the palace. The linen trade also offers employment for women. Moreover, women can enter the priesthood, often serving in cults of goddesses like Neith and Hathor. Unlike the male priesthood, the female priesthood is not typically hereditary, making it more accessible for newcomers. Roles often involve chanting, singing, and music during temple rituals. Beyond these roles, women can also find employment as midwives, a lucrative if variable income source. Wet nurses are hired by upper-class families to care for their infants, a potentially long-term position. Professional mourners are hired for funerals to publicly display grief. Wages are generally paid monthly, often in the form of rations, primarily grain, supplemented with fish, vegetables, and other necessities. These rations provide enough to feed a family with a surplus from market exchange. Government workers also receive bonus rations on festivals. Wages vary significantly based on position and skill. For example, at Deir el-Medina, a foreman or scribe might earn 7.5 sacks of corn per month, while a worker earns 5.5 sacks and a gatekeeper or physician earns 1.5 sacks. In this dynamic city of Thebes, securing employment is a critical step towards establishing a new life. By identifying one's skills and understanding the local economy, a stable livelihood can be achieved, ensuring a comfortable existence amidst the grandeur of ancient Egypt.
The divine and the everyday. Beliefs, rituals, and worship. In ancient Egypt, the divine was not a separate, distant realm, but an intrinsic part of the fabric of daily existence. The Egyptians lived in a world permeated by their gods, their mythology, and the constant negotiation of cosmic order. This omnipresent spirituality shaped their understanding of the world, their actions, and their hopes for the afterlife. Religion was woven into the very landscape. The annual inundation of the Nile, the lifeblood of Egypt, was attributed to the tears of the goddess Isis, mourning her murdered husband Osiris. This event, celebrated on the night of the tear, honored Isis as a nurturer and underscored the Nile's life-giving power. Even the sky held divine significance, with clouds believed to be the bones of the god Shu, and the gentle north wind carrying the invisible presence of Amun. Religious festivals were vibrant communal events, offering opportunities for feasting, music, and dancing. Thebes alone hosted 65 festival days annually, ensuring a constant rhythm of celebration throughout the year. Among the most significant were the Opet Festival and the beautiful Festival of the Valley, events that drew people from all walks of life. New Year,
marking the start of the flood season, also celebrated the birthday of the sun god, Ra-Horakhti. Offerings to Hapi, the Nile god, and the Theban deity Amun were crucial to ensure a bountiful flood. The annual sailing festivals, with processions of sacred barks dedicated to various deities like Wajet, Bastet, and Mut, brought life and energy to the Nile itself. A midwinter festival, also celebrated in the season of sowing, involved bringing branches of the Ished tree, sacred to the sun god, to the temples, a ritual deeply connected to the solar cycle. The festival of Min, the Ithyphallic fertility god, 4 days long and held during the new moon, explicitly celebrated the potent force of fertility. Temples, such as the colossal Karnak and Luxor temples, were magnificent structures, yet largely inaccessible to the public. Only the king, priests, and temple workers were permitted within their sacred confines. Members of the upper classes might gain access to the outer courtyards to dedicate statues. For ordinary people, the closest they could get to the gods was during public processions. These were spectacles of white linen-clad priests swinging incense burners and priestesses and chantresses singing and dancing. The sacred bark, carrying the spirit of the god within a statue, would be borne on the shoulders of priests, offering a tangible, if indirect, connection to the divine. The Opet festival, a 27-day celebration, saw the shrine of Amun carried from Karnak to Luxor, a procession involving drummers, lutanists, acrobatic dancers, blind harpists, and military units. This grand event often resulted in the distribution of extra rations, fostering even greater festivities within the villages. Similarly, the beautiful Festival of the Valley involved Amun's statue traveling from Karnak to the necropolis on the west bank, where he would visit the Temple of Hathor. These journeys across the Nile were elaborate affairs, with flotillas of boats enabling the populace to participate. Married couples used this time to invoke blessings on their relationships, associating themselves with the divine couple Amun and Hathor, and hoping for conception. While state gods like Amun and Ra were central to royal activities, the populace also maintained deep devotion to household gods. Household shrines, typically in the first room of the house, held statues of deities important to the household's concerns: health, childbirth, and fertility. Daily worship mirrored temple rituals, with statues washed, redressed, and offered food and drink. The spiritual nourishment derived from these offerings was then believed to pass to the family, bestowing blessings and benefits. The creator god Ptah, while a state deity, was particularly popular in the workmen's village of Deir el-Medina, revered as the patron deity of craftsmen. For those working in the often harsh conditions of tomb construction, Ptah's displeasure was blamed for eye ailments, a testament to his direct influence on their lives. Hathor, the goddess of love, fertility, and motherhood, was widely worshipped. In her guise as the mother of the king, she held a significant role in state religion, but in the home, she was invoked for matters of sexuality and motherhood. The 7 Hathors, an aspect of her divinity, would pronounce the fate of newborns. While Hathor's temple at Deir el-Bahi was open to the public at certain times, offerings of clay phalli or figurines of women were common in household shrines, alongside more humble gifts like beads and amulets seeking her blessing for fertility. Hathor's association with love and beauty also extended to her role as the Lady of Drunkenness, with festivals dedicated to appeasing her lioness form, Sekhmet, a deity known for her destructive potential. The legendary Festival of Drunkenness, where the river was filled with beer dyed red, distracted Sekhmet from her rampage against humanity. The most prevalent form of home worship, however, was directed towards family ancestors. Deceased individuals, revered as excellent spirits of Re, believed to possess semi-divine powers, capable of intervening in the lives of the living. Ancestor busts, typically of recent generations and often women, served as focal points for worship in household shrines. Offerings of food and drink were made, and prayers for assistance with personal matters, from conception to resolving disputes, were directed towards them. During the beautiful Festival of the Valley, these ancestor busts would accompany the living to the cemetery, fostering a profound connection between the earthly and the spiritual realms. The practice of oracles was another crucial element, bridging the gap between mortal concerns and divine judgment. During processions, petitioners could approach the god's shrine, and the movement of the shrine bearers would be interpreted as divine ascent or descent. Cases of stolen property and even accusations of adultery were resolved through these oracular pronouncements. Pilgrimages, particularly to Memphis, the creation site of Ptah, or Abydos, the burial place of Osiris, were undertaken to enhance spiritual connection and the prospect of eternal life. Death itself was not an end, but a transition. The Egyptians believed in an afterlife, the fields of reeds, a paradise resembling an abundant earthly landscape. The meticulous process of mummification ensured the body's preservation, allowing the Ka, or life force, to reunite with it in the afterlife. The quality of mummification, and consequently the deceased's eternal well-being, was directly tied to one's wealth. The elaborate opening of the mouth ceremony was vital, ceremonially restoring the senses of the deceased for their journey and for their enjoyment of the afterlife. Funerary banquets and regular libations poured at tombs reinforced the ongoing relationship between the living and the dead, ensuring their continued remembrance and existence in the afterlife. This constant interplay between the divine and the mundane, the sacred and the everyday, defined the ancient Egyptian worldview. Their beliefs, rituals, and worship were not confined to solemn temple rites, but permeated every aspect of their lives, from the grandest festivals to the most intimate household devotions, offering solace, guidance, and hope for both this life and the next.
Staying healthy, visiting the physician and the wise woman. The ancient Egyptian physician, or snoo, held a respected place in society. Indeed, Egyptian doctors were renowned throughout the ancient world, with many being sent abroad to treat foreign royalty. The finest physicians were often priests who honed their skills at the House of Life, a prestigious institution for learning attached to the great temples. The very concept of the House of Life originated with the sage Imhotep, the brilliant architect behind the step pyramid of Djoser. While the original House of Life was in Memphis, Thebes boasted its own training center at the Temple of Karnak. However, seeking treatment from these temple physicians was beyond the financial reach of most. For the average person, alternative care was necessary, and this varied depending on the nature of the ailment. If an ailment presented with obvious physical symptoms, such as a cut or a broken bone, a doctor was the appropriate choice. Their treatments typically involved medicinal applications, sometimes accompanied by incantations or prayers. For ailments with less obvious causes, the Egyptians believed the problem might be supernatural in origin. In such cases, supernatural means were required for a cure. While approaching the temple physicians for these spiritual illnesses was an option, it came with a significant cost. The initial consultation alone was expensive, and the cure itself might necessitate constructing a new shrine for the temple. Furthermore, at certain times of the year, temples were exceptionally busy, making access to priests difficult. If you found yourself in this situation, you could state your case to the doorkeeper, who might then approach a priest on your behalf. Appealing directly to a deity was also a possibility. If struck by plague or epidemic, the priests of Sekhmet, the fierce lioness-headed goddess, would be approached. Sekhmet herself was the controller of such afflictions, and supplicants would appeal to her to withdraw the very pestilence she initially caused. In densely populated areas, diseases spread rapidly, so maintaining good relations with Sekhmet's priests while healthy could help you bypass the queue during an epidemic. For eye diseases, the lunar god Duao, patron of ophthalmologists, was the deity to turn to. While there were no shrines exclusively dedicated to him, a priest could intercede on your behalf. Similarly, for the common and often fatal bites and stings from snakes and scorpions, one could appeal to Horus, the god of deadly stings, or Selket, the goddess who could cure bites from venomous reptiles and insects. If temple physicians were too expensive, or if the ailment was serious but not deemed a matter for gods or priests, then the village physician was the next recourse. Often, the village scribe, possessing knowledge of medical papyri, could offer prescriptions or direct you to the local physician best suited for your condition. These village physicians often specialized in specific ailments, such as eyes, childbirth, or stings and bites, and the cost of treatment was generally negotiable. The examination procedure was systematic. A physician would begin by inquiring about your symptoms before conducting a physical examination. This included scrutinizing urine, stools, sputum, and blood. They would then check your pulse, believing it to be a vital indicator of the heart's condition. A final assessment involved checking reflexes, tapping on the belly and finger. Upon diagnosis, the physician would make one of three prognoses: an ailment which I will treat, an ailment which I will contend, or an ailment not to be treated. If you received the latter, it was advisable to seek a second opinion. Many of the treatments prescribed were logical. For invisible diseases, or those with suspected supernatural causes, oral medication was common. External applications were used for pain, ointments for skin conditions, inhalations for respiratory issues, gargles for mouth disorders, baths and douches for gynecological problems, and enemas for intestinal infections. Many common ailments could be treated at home, saving time and money. Self-diagnosis was prevalent, the literate consulting medical papyri, and the less literate relying on word of mouth. For bites and stings, identifying the creature was crucial, as each venom required a specific treatment. A common remedy involved a knife treatment to remove venom, followed by packing the wound with natron to reduce swelling. Onion ground finely in beer, eaten and spat out, was another remedy for venomous bites. Indigestion might be treated with crushed hogtooth mixed into sweet cakes. Diarrhea could be alleviated with a mixture of figs, grapes, bread dough, fresh earth, onion, and elderberry. Burns, a risk from cooking on open fires, could be soothed with a compress of barley bread, animal fat, and salt. More severe burns required a complex, day-specific treatment involving various ingredients from mud to copper flakes. Infections, a common complication of burns, were identifiable by fever, redness, and swelling. Green pigment like copper or malachite could be applied. Headaches were common, with remedies like coriander fruit and honey poultices offering relief. Colds, though common, were primarily addressed with a religious incantation rather than purely medicinal applications, though symptomatic relief was also sought. For open wounds, cleaning with wine followed by sewing with a needle and thread was recommended. Applying raw meat on the first day was believed to facilitate healing. Medications were adapted for age, and the time of day for application was often considered important. Ancient Egyptians suffered from various parasites, like bilharzia, which were difficult to avoid due to their presence in stagnant water. The guinea worm and trichinella were also common. Breathing difficulties, particularly sand pneumoconiosis from dust and sand, could be soothed by inhaling heated mixtures of honey, cream, and date kernels. Eye diseases were treated with unusual ingredients, including animal excrement and blood, applied with considerable discomfort. Powdered granite was sprinkled on weakening eyes for strength, and cataracts were treated with tortoise brains and honey, accompanied by prayers. Pa was the primary deity for eye complaints, though Dua and Mehitantai were also invoked. Broken bones could be set by doctors with wooden splints padded with linen applied. For severe breaks, casts made of cow's milk and barley or acacia leaves were used. Copper wings on toes were recommended for healing broken feet. Even broken noses were treated at home, involving cleaning the nostrils with linen swabs and applying oil and honey. Toothache was a common affliction, with few trained dentists. Treatment often involved self-administration or seeking the wise woman's help. Dental hygiene, such as using a frayed twig as a toothbrush, was advised. Chewing natron and cinnamon sticks freshened the breath. Tooth wear, exacerbated by sand and grit and bread, was a major cause of pain, leading to abscesses. These abscesses, if left untreated, could be fatal. Pain relief could be sought through various remedies, but effectiveness varied. Dislocated jaws were treated by doctors who would manipulate the joint back into place. While male physicians treated all, the village wise woman specialized in feminine health and offered remedies for other daily conditions. Her skills were passed down through generations, emphasizing the importance of lineage for tried and tested treatments. For couples struggling to conceive, divorce was a practical solution, but visiting the wise woman offered alternatives. Fertility tests involved sitting over a beer and date mixture, with vomiting indicating open channels. An onion test inserted vaginally would reveal fertility by its smell on the breath in the morning. Breast vein appearance was also observed as an indicator of fertility. Adoption was a viable option for childless couples. Contraception was also practiced. Prolonged breastfeeding was a primary method, though not always effective, especially for the upper classes. For those seeking more definitive prevention, absorbent pads made from dried crocodile dung and honey or linen coated with acacia, carob, and date powder were used. Pregnancy was confirmed by a halted monthly cycle, with the onion test serving as a further indicator. Changes in behavior, nausea, and vomiting were also recognized signs. During pregnancy, worshipping to wear it was advised, along with amulets. For unwelcome pregnancies, a dangerous remedy involving the nyaya plant could be used under supervision to induce abortion. Determining the baby's sex involved a home test with emmer wheat and barley seeds, which sprouted differently for boys and girls. During pregnancy, keeping safe was paramount, with bed rest being the ideal but often impractical solution. Prayers to Hathor, to Werit, and Bes were common for protection. A spell involving knotted fabric was used to prevent miscarriage. Midwives played a crucial role, employing incantations, rituals, and practical advice, including hair preparation for easier labor. Complications during childbirth might involve stimulating birth with various mixtures or a paste applied to the abdomen. Birthing bricks decorated with protective deities aided labor, and steam from aromatic herbs helped ease the baby's descent. Prayers to Bes were recited for safe delivery. The placenta was treated with care, preserved, and kept with the child throughout life. Post-birth, new mothers received soothing remedies, and a period of confinement was often observed for recovery and safety. Naming ceremonies were held, with names chosen for their protective qualities or divine affiliations. Mental well-being was also addressed. Fever in the heart or depression was treated through temple sleep, where priests interpreted dreams believed to be divine messages to guide healing. Offerings to temples could also facilitate recovery and peace of mind. In summary, ancient Egyptians had a multifaceted approach to health, combining practical medical knowledge with a strong reliance on divine intervention and traditional wisdom passed down through generations. Whether seeking the skilled hands of a physician, the ancestral knowledge of a wise woman, or the intervention of the gods, the aim was always to restore balance and well-being in a challenging world.
Conceiving and protecting new life, pregnancy and childbirth. In the intricate tapestry of ancient Egyptian life, the continuation of family and the very survival of the community hinged upon the successful conception and birth of new life. This was a sacred and often precarious journey, undertaken with the aid of ancient wisdom, divine intervention, and the support of the community. The very act of conceiving a child was deeply intertwined with beliefs about fertility and the divine. While many couples undoubtedly conceived through natural means, the desire for progeny was so strong that infertility was a significant concern. If a couple found themselves unable to conceive, divorce was a practical, though perhaps sorrowful, solution, offering the chance for one or both partners to find a more fertile union elsewhere. For those who wished to remain together, the village wise woman, a repository of traditional medical knowledge, offered a path forward. Testing for infertility often focused on the woman, as it was believed to be more apparent. The wise woman employed a range of tests, drawing upon a deep understanding of the female body and its connection to the natural world. One method involved the woman sitting over a mixture of beer and dates. If she felt the urge to vomit, it was a sign that her reproductive channels were open and clear, a good omen for conception. The number of times she vomited was even thought to indicate the number of children she might bear. An alternative involved drinking a mixture of seeds from a plant available from the wise woman with the milk of a woman who had recently given birth. Again, vomiting was a positive sign. For women who could not tolerate inducing vomiting, the humble onion offered a simpler solution. Inserted into the vagina overnight, if the woman's breath smelled of onion in the morning, it indicated open channels and thus fertility. Even the appearance of veins on the breasts was observed. Healthy, normal veins suggested the ability to bear children, while darker or greener veins might indicate a later pregnancy, and broken, sunken veins meant that conception was truly in the hands of the gods, with Hathor, the goddess of motherhood, being the primary deity to appeal to. For those who desired children but found conception difficult, adoption was a recognized and humane solution. The text speaks of orphans whose parents had succumbed to disease, accident, or old age, and childless couples could open their homes and hearts to these youngsters, integrating them into the family structure without the need for complex legalities. It was a natural process of welcoming a child into the fold, with the community celebrating this new bond. Adoption could even extend to adults, offering companionship and ensuring a legacy for older couples. Conversely, for those who wished to prevent pregnancy, various methods were available. Prolonged breastfeeding of an existing child was a natural contraceptive, generally practiced for up to 3 years, providing the safest and healthiest nourishment. However, this was not always foolproof, and social expectations within the upper classes, who often employed wet nurses, could complicate this approach. For those requiring more definitive contraception,
absorbent pads made from materials like dried crocodile dung mixed with honey were inserted into the vagina to soak up semen. Another method involved coating a linen pad with a mixture of acacia, carob, and dates, also placed within the vagina. These were practical, if somewhat unconventional methods for controlling family size. Confirming pregnancy involved observing the halting of a woman's monthly cycle, and the onion test could be reapplied with a blocked passage indicating the presence of a developing baby. Other signs included a quickened pulse, paleness, nausea, vomiting, and cravings for unusual foods. Upon confirming a pregnancy, women were advised to turn to the protective deities Hathor, Tarwet, and Bes, often by wearing amulets or placing small statues in household shrines and making daily offerings. Pregnancy itself was a period of great anticipation, but also considerable anxiety. The fear of miscarriage, often indicated by bleeding, was a constant concern, and full bed rest was the only sure way to mitigate this risk, though this was impractical for most women who had other children to care for or work to do. For women who faced an unwelcome pregnancy, dangerous methods to induce abortion existed, involving sitting over a carefully prepared mixture of the nyaya plant, but these were best undertaken with the guidance of a wise woman or midwife. As the pregnancy progressed, the anticipation of the child's sex was palpable. While both boys and girls were accepted, sons were particularly valued for carrying on the family name and career and for caring for their parents in old age. A simple home test using emmer wheat and barley seeds was used. Whichever sprouted first after being urinated on daily indicated the sex of the baby, with wheat signifying a boy and barley a girl. If neither sprouted, it was a sign that conception had not occurred. The culmination of pregnancy was childbirth, a moment of profound vulnerability and immense power. The process was guided by experienced midwives who possessed a blend of practical knowledge and ritualistic understanding. They were responsible for ensuring the safety of both mother and child, using incantations and symbolic actions. A woman's hair, for instance, was tightly bound, symbolizing the containment of the birth, and slowly loosened as labor progressed, mirroring the baby's descent. Medical practices involving complicated mixtures of natural ingredients and even symbolic magic were employed to encourage a difficult birth, always with the caution that certain plants could be dangerous if not prepared correctly. The birth itself was often performed in a squatting position, with specially decorated birthing bricks bearing images of protective deities placed under the mother's feet. The midwife would chant prayers to ward off malevolent spirits, and the use of an ivory birthing wand adorned with protective figures was believed to help repel demons. Upon the baby's arrival, its first cry was interpreted as a prediction of its future health. The umbilical cord was then cut with a ceremonial knife, and the placenta, treated with great respect, was preserved, often mummified, to remain with the child throughout its life and even into the afterlife. After birth, a period of confinement was observed, varying in duration and practice. New mothers would rest, often in specially decorated chambers, to ensure their safety and the child's well-being. A naming ceremony followed on the 7th day, where the child's name, considered a crucial element of identity and protection, was chosen with great care. Even after birth, mothers could experience postnatal depression, a condition known as fever in the heart, for which temple sleep and dream interpretation by priests offered a path to healing and spiritual guidance. The journey of pregnancy and childbirth, from conception to the naming of a newborn, was a profound and deeply spiritual undertaking in ancient Egypt, marked by a unique blend of practical knowledge, ritual, and unwavering faith in the divine forces that governed life and prosperity. Stepping out in style, fashion, cosmetics, and personal adornment. Ancient Egypt, a land of profound contrasts, where the arid desert meets the life-giving Nile, embraced a vibrant culture that extended to the very presentation of its people. In Thebes, the bustling heart of this civilization, appearance was not merely superficial. It was a reflection of social standing, religious belief, and a commitment to the principles of Maat, the cosmic order. To truly blend in, to be accepted, one must understand and participate in the nuanced world of fashion, cosmetics, and personal adornment. Cleanliness was paramount. As the text emphasizes, the key to staying healthy is to keep as clean as possible. This involved daily bathing, a ritual performed by all, regardless of status. While the wealthy might possess dedicated ablution rooms with showers, the majority relied on water from bowls within their homes, or for the very poor, the life-giving waters of the Nile itself. To combat the dryness of the air and the skin, anointing with oils was essential. These weren't just functional, they were fragrant, crafted from a myriad of scented oils blended with milk, honey, resins, and aromatic flowers, offering both olfactory pleasure and skin nourishment. The pursuit of beauty extended to the removal of body hair. Men, on the whole, were clean-shaven, with beards being a sign of mourning. Women employed copper razors or tweezers, aided by oils, for a smooth shave. For those less inclined to these methods, depilatory creams, concocted from bird bones, fly dung, and sycamore juice, offered an alternative. Eyebrows were a canvas for fashion. Rather than thin, plucked lines, they were left full and often extended with cosmetics to reach the hairline, a testament to the emphasis on a bold, defined look. Wigs played a significant role in ancient Egyptian fashion, often more so than natural hair. Both men and women frequently shaved their heads, not only for aesthetic reasons, but also for practical hygiene, to prevent infestations of lice and fleas in the hot climate. Hair itself was considered highly erotic, its styling and adornment alluded to in literature and love poetry, sometimes even equating it with a state of undress. Wigs varied greatly in quality and material, from inexpensive red palm fiber to intricately woven human hair, often reaching shoulder length or longer. The fashionable tripartite wig, with its distinct sections, required considerable skill to style and maintain, thus becoming a clear indicator of wealth and the availability of staff. For special occasions, decorative headbands, adorned with flowers or intricate patterns, added a final touch. Cosmetics were not a luxury, but a daily necessity for all Egyptians, men and women alike. Beyond enhancing appearance, they served medicinal purposes, particularly eye makeup. Kohl, ground from minerals like galena, was applied using pleasure wood sticks. It served to repel flies and reflect the harsh desert sun, protecting the eyes from infection. Green malachite and dark gray galena were the most prized, often imported, and a spectacle in the marketplace. While these imported minerals held religious associations, with black representing the Nile's fertility and green the freshness of new growth, those with fewer resources could create their own kohl from soot, charred almond shells, and frankincense.
rouge and lipstick made from hematite and red ochre mixed with oil or fat were a newer trend, with the queen herself rumored to be a wearer. At the end of the day, cosmetics were removed with cleansers of fat sediment and lime, followed by perfumed oils. The clothing itself, while seemingly simple, offered avenues for personal expression and status. The fundamental garments for both men and women were the long or short tunic, often paired with a kilt for men. The quality of linen was crucial. Transparency by design, not wear, indicated fine material, while its drape revealed its elegance. Colors ranged from white to golden brown, chosen to complement skin tone. Loincloths, essential for both genders, were triangular and tied to ensure a proper fit, with excess fabric at the front of a man's kilt signifying wealth. Accessories transformed these basic garments. Tunics could be adorned with decorative collars imported from Syria or Nubia, or embellished with beads, rosettes, and sequins. Sashes made of colored wool, tapestry, or linen added vibrancy, as did shawls, which could provide warmth or create the illusion of fuller sleeves. For colder evenings, full-length cloaks, dyed in deep blues or reds, offered protection. Headwear was equally important, with the ubiquitous linen kerchief protecting from the sun, while the more stylish khat offered a semicircular drape. Jewelry was an indispensable element for both men and women. Faience jewelry, ideal for everyday wear, was best sourced from small, independent craftsmen to ensure uniqueness. For gold and silver, temple workshops or the most expensive artisans were recommended, as these materials carried religious connotations, silver for lunar deities, gold for the sun. Semi-precious stones like amethyst and lapis lazuli were also highly valued. Beyond adornment, amulets, such as those of Bes or Taweret for pregnant women, provided protection. Even shoes, often made from plant fibers, reeds, or papyrus, were a sign of status, with leather sandals being a more durable and expensive option. The pursuit of style and personal adornment was deeply intertwined with the culture and beliefs of ancient Egypt, offering a glimpse into the lives of those who sought to step out in Thebes with confidence and grace.
Passing the time, entertainment, games, and pastimes. Life in ancient Egypt, even for those who could afford it, was not all toil and religious observance. The capital city of Thebes, a vibrant hub of culture, fashion, and arts, offered a plethora of ways to fill one's leisure hours. For the children, entertainment was often simple and creatively sourced. Toys, whether budget-friendly or more elaborate, were fashioned from mud, clay, or carved wood. Children delighted in fashioning animals like pigs, hippos, and crocodiles, or even boats and chariots. For those with a bit more disposable income, carpenters could craft articulated wooden animals with moving parts, or realistic dolls for young girls, complete with removable clothes. However, the most ubiquitous toy, transcending age and budget, was the ball. Versatile and adaptable, balls were made from wood, clay, leather strips, or plant fibers, and facilitated a myriad of games. Juggling, a pastime enjoyed by girls, could be performed alone or competitively, often with 3 balls, showcasing remarkable dexterity. Girls also engaged in games like piggyback catch, a spirited competition involving pairs. Boys, on the other hand, channeled their energy into activities demonstrating strength, such as hitting a ball with a stick or games like territories, where they used pointed sticks to capture their opponent's marked spaces. Ritualistic ball games also held significance, with the king depicted in certain ceremonies striking a ball, symbolizing the destruction of malevolent forces. For adults, leisure activities were generally more accessible to men, who often enjoyed more free time than women, whose domestic duties extended from dawn till dusk. Athletics and sports were popular, serving not only as pastimes but also as crucial components of military training, with running, wrestling, and archery being key disciplines. While formal running competitions were rare, impromptu races likely occurred on scheduled days off. Swimming was a common skill for all Egyptians, given the centrality of the Nile, but it was primarily a practical necessity rather than a competitive sport, with dangers like crocodiles and strong currents discouraging casual participation. However, even in the realm of swimming, a competitive element can be found in the dramatic tales of gods transforming into hippos for underwater contests. Boating on the Nile was a more leisurely pursuit, with kings enjoying pleasure trips accompanied by attendants, while ordinary folk would row themselves or hire boatmen. Informal boat jousting among fishermen using their punting poles provided a raucous and potentially perilous spectacle. Public displays and competitions were also a part of life. Villages might host impromptu wrestling matches, demonstrating strength and agility, or stick-fighting displays, a tradition dating back to the Pyramid Age. These were opportunities to wager bets and showcase military skills. Wrestling, often performed naked to ensure fairness, involved impressive feats of strength, while stick-fighting, though practiced with soft papyrus stalks for training, saw wooden sticks used in public demonstrations. Military training itself offered entertainment, with archery competitions from chariots, showcasing remarkable skill. Chariot races, a more elite spectacle, took place at venues like Qom el Abd, offering a glimpse of the army's charioteering corps, though often with the risk of fatal accidents. Even a seemingly simple activity like jumping held cultural significance, linked to fertility rituals and the god Men. Hunting and fishing, while essential for survival for many, also served as pastimes for the elite. Desert hunts provided opportunities to track lions, leopards, and various antelopes, with the belief that the hunter absorbed the characteristics of their prey. Royal hunting, as depicted in propaganda, involved impressive kills, though often supported by teams to ensure the king's success. Fishing, whether for sustenance or leisure, involved nets for large catches or spears for more skilled individual pursuits. Fowling, using throw sticks to catch marsh birds, was another popular activity. These pursuits were often viewed as family affairs, with men spearfishing and women providing company. For those with larger homes, pool fishing offered a more relaxed and civilized way to spend an afternoon. Board games were a highly accessible and lucrative way to pass the time, enjoyed by all ages. While fancy boards existed, simple games could be played on stone pavements or drawn in the sand, using pebbles as pieces. The most popular game was Senet, a strategic race played on 30 squares, where players navigated their pieces while attempting to block their opponents. Certain squares held good or bad fortune, and the game even held funerary significance, with the deceased depicted playing to secure their afterlife. A simpler variation, 20 squares, and the game of hounds and jackals, with its 30 holes and dog or jackal-headed pins, provided further entertainment. While no definitive rules for these games survive, their widespread presence suggests a deep engagement with them. Evening entertainment often revolved around informal gatherings and house parties. Music, singing, and dancing were central to these occasions, with varying levels of professionalism. Work songs, often improvised, could be heard throughout the day, helping laborers to pass the time and maintain rhythm. Professional troupes of singers, dancers, and musicians were available for hire for special events. Dancers, invariably female, often wore minimum clothing and performed impressive acrobatic feats, their movements enhanced by weighted hair or wigs. Male dance troupes also existed, with the traditional cherif dance of the Old Kingdom. Musicians played instruments like lutes, harps, and drums, providing accompaniment for dancers and singers. Blind harpists were particularly in demand for private entertainment. Music itself was highly revered, associated with deities like Bes, Hathor, and Thoth, and played a significant role in temple worship and religious processions. The vibrant musicality of Thebes would quickly draw newcomers into its infectious rhythm, offering a rich tapestry of sound and movement to enrich daily life.
Obeying the laws of Ma'at, justice, crime, and punishment. In ancient Egypt, the concept of Ma'at was more than just a goddess. It was the fundamental principle of truth, justice, cosmic order, and balance that underpinned society. To live in Kemet, to thrive and avoid calamity, was to strive to live in accordance with Ma'at. This meant upholding justice, respecting the laws, and understanding the consequences for their transgression. Unlike many other cultures, ancient Egypt did not possess a single unified legal code that applied across all its nomes. Instead, each town and region developed its own set of accepted laws and customs, often dealt with on a case-by-case basis. The evidence we have for the legal system comes primarily from administrative documents and court records, particularly from the New Kingdom village of Deir el-Medina, home to the craftsmen who built the royal tombs. These records, often incomplete, reveal a system focused on maintaining public order and resolving disputes. At the heart of the justice system was the Kenbet, a local court. These courts, often composed of local elders and overseen by the vizier, acted as the primary avenue for seeking redress. The vizier held immense power, ultimately responsible for justice throughout the land. The Kenbet was not necessarily concerned with uncovering absolute truth in the modern sense, but rather with achieving a resolution that maintained public harmony. This often meant siding with popular opinion or accepting oaths sworn to the gods and the king as sufficient to conclude a case. Perjury, or lying to the Kenbet, was considered a grave offense, often more serious than the crime itself. To swear an oath and then break it was to invite the wrath of both the gods and the king, an act that could have severe repercussions for not only the individual but their entire family. The vizier's authority was absolute. He could administer the death penalty, and his decisions could affect generations. In cases of severe crimes, families could be sentenced to lifelong labor as state slaves, and positions of influence, even hereditary ones, could be forfeited not just for the offender, but for their descendants. While most crimes were addressed by the injured party initiating a complaint, certain offenses were always pursued. Crimes against the state or the temple were taken very seriously and investigated by the vizier's office, resulting in harsher punishments. These could include treason, rebellion, or any act perceived as undermining the divine order. Sexual crimes such as adultery, seduction, or rape were primarily handled if the injured party, usually the husband, chose to pursue the matter. The punishments were inconsistent, often reflecting the social standing and determination of the husband. Seduction or rape of unmarried girls, to avoid scandal, often led to the girl being forced into marriage. Adultery, while not always a criminal offense, could provoke violent revenge from an enraged husband, with the Kenbet intervening mainly to maintain public order rather than to prosecute.
The notorious harem conspiracy against Ramses III illustrates how even the king distanced himself from death penalty pronouncements, emphasizing the gravity and finality of such grim judgments. For those found guilty of severe crimes, the punishment could be hard labor, particularly in the mines or quarryings. These journeys were fraught with danger due to the harsh desert environment and the lack of water, with many perishing en route. The fear of being sent for forced labor was so profound that it was commonly used in oaths, signifying the ultimate penalty. The death penalty was reserved for the most serious offenses against the state, king, or gods. Execution was public, often by impalement or burning, serving as a grim deterrent. Crucially, criminals sentenced to death were often denied proper burial rites, condemning them to eternal oblivion. Their names could be chiseled from tombs, and their bodies denied mummification, ensuring their complete erasure from existence. As a newcomer to Kemet, it was advisable to understand these principles and to cultivate good relations within your community. Annoying the wrong people could lead to harsher punishments than the crime warranted. Similarly, foreigners might face different judicial processes, with rebellions by non-Egyptians often resulting in immediate execution without trial, highlighting the importance of respecting Egyptian law and order. The ultimate goal was to maintain Ma'at, ensuring the stability and prosperity of Egypt for all.